golden cage. The human woke up to soft humming sounds and a strange blue light above his face. His body felt heavy. His mouth was dry. As he blinked, shapes moved around him. Tall, glowing figures with long arms and smooth skin that shimmered like glass. He tried to sit up, but metal bands held his wrists and ankles. He looked around. He was inside a glass-like chamber. The air smelled sweet. Too sweet. Like fruit left in the sun. Strange symbols blinked on the walls. A soft voice spoke from behind the glass. "Pet is awake," it said in a language no human should understand. But he understood it. He didn't know how. He just knew. Every word made perfect sense in his head. He kept his face blank and said nothing. If they thought he couldn't understand, maybe they would let their guard down. The glowing figures opened the chamber. Two of them lifted him like a child and placed him gently on a floating platform. His arms were weak. His stomach growled. Still, he kept quiet. "He looks damaged," said one. "The Empress will not mind," said another. "She likes the ones with scars." The human narrowed his eyes. "Empress?" They took him down a hallway filled with gold and silver lights. Creatures of all shapes passed by, some tall like trees, some short with glowing tails. They all stared at him with curious eyes. Then, a door opened. Inside was a large room made of shining stone. At the center, on a throne of silver and black crystal, sat her, the Empress. She was beautiful, in an alien way, tall and strong, her skin like dark metal, her eyes glowing like stars. Her face was calm, cold. She wore a flowing robe that shimmered, with colors that didn't exist on Earth. Everyone in the room bowed. The human was pushed forward. He didn't bow. He stared. The Empress stood and walked toward him. Her footsteps made no sound. She circled him slowly like a cat watching prey. "This is the one?" she asked. "Yes, Empress," a guard replied. "We found him alone, unarmed. His craft was broken." The Empress stopped in front of him. "Can it speak?" "No, Empress, no words. We believe it is simple." The Empress tilted her head and looked into his eyes. So small, so soft. "But your eyes are aware." He stayed silent. Still, he didn't blink. She turned away. "Wash it, feed it, trim the hair, then bring it to my garden." "Yes, Empress." The guards pulled him away. In another room, they placed him in a warm pool of glowing water. Machines washed him, brushed his hair, even clipped his nails. They gave him food, soft, sweet, strange food, and he ate in silence. Later, they dressed him in soft white robes and led him to a strange place full of floating lights and gentle music. Trees with silver leaves swayed in a breeze that didn't exist. Birds with crystal wings flew above, and the Empress was there, sitting beside a glowing fountain. She looked at him without speaking. He sat near her feet. "I used to own beasts, with sharp teeth," she said quietly, more to herself than to him. "They obeyed, but they had no soul. You are different. I see something wild inside you." He looked at the water, still silent, still listening. "I will keep you close," she said. "You will be my pet, my quiet little earth creature." She smiled. It was not kind. Then she leaned toward her advisor and whispered, "Keep it under watch. If it tries anything, kill it quietly." The human heard every word, but he said nothing. He only bowed his head slightly, pretending to be tamed. In his mind, though, he was making a plan. The human sat on the cold, polished floor just beside the Empress's golden chair. No bed, no cushion. No words were spoken to him. They treated him like a pet. A soft bowl of glowing blue liquid was pushed toward him. No spoon. Just a bowl on the floor. He didn't move at first. He only stared at the liquid. Then slowly, carefully, he lowered his head and drank like an animal. The alien nobles chuckled quietly. "See? He learns fast," one said. "Still nothing from its mouth," another replied. "Just like the Empress prefers." But the human was learning fast. just not in the way they imagined. He listened to their words, their accents, the way their voices changed when they lied. They talked freely around him, thinking he was stupid, thinking he didn't understand. But he did. Every word. He learned names, ranks, the sound of military codes, and something even darker. He kept hearing about a place called the Cradle Vault, a chamber below the palace forbidden to all but the Empress. That night, the human was led to a tiny chamber near the palace garden. It had no bed, only a soft rug on the ground. He lay on it quietly. The guard outside whispered to another, "The Empress grows attached too quickly. She always keeps them close before they break. Let her enjoy it," the other guard said. "This one will scream too in time." The human's fists clenched on the rug, but he said nothing. The next day, the Empress entered the garden, again. Her long robe shimmered like water. She walked slowly, her hands behind her back. He was already sitting there, beside the tree she liked. Silent, obedient. But his eyes watched everything, the guards, the sky, the way the trees bent in, the wind. He noticed a servant girl who always came with fruit. Her steps were careful, eyes nervous. This time she dropped a piece of fruit. By mistake, the human reached for it and handed it to her. She gasped softly. "You understand?" she whispered, in alien tongue. He gave her a slow blink, just one, then looked away quickly, pretending again. The servant girl hurried off, but the Empress had noticed. She tilted her head. "Interesting," she murmured. Later that day she ordered a test. "Bring the pet to the bath hall," she commanded. "Let's see how well it follows." The bath hall was vast. Water ran through stone canals. The room smelled of flowers and heat. The Empress stood at the center. Her guard stayed outside. She gave him a single command. One word. Alien language. Pour. A golden jug sat near the edge. He moved slowly as if unsure, but then picked it up and carefully poured the scented water into her hands. She raised an eyebrow. "Again," she said. "Pour." He obeyed. 3 more commands. 3 perfect actions. The Empress turned and walked to the edge of the bath. She looked over her shoulder. "You are no simple beast, are you?" He said nothing. She leaned close, her voice a whisper. "I see you watching, listening. That is fine. You will still obey." Then she smiled, a slow, dangerous smile. "But if you lie to me, I will break you myself." She left the room. Her footsteps echoed like thunder. That night the human sat on his rug again, his stomach full, his body clean. But his mind raced. They thought they could train him, dominate him, use him. But he had something they didn't know. He had understanding, and understanding was power. He stared at the wall and remembered something the guard said earlier. The Cradle Vault holds her true secrets. The pet must never know. He smiled faintly. Too late. The palace was quiet at night. The glowing trees in the Empress's garden had dimmed to soft blues. The air was still. Most of the guards had left for their night rotations. Even the servants whispered less. But the human was wide awake. He sat calmly in his chamber, eyes closed, but his ears were listening. Every step, every breath, every door that opened. And then he heard it, the low hum of the Empress's throne room door unlocking. It was past midnight. No one should be there. He waited 5 minutes, 10. Then, like a shadow, he stood up. Silent steps, careful hands. He opened the curtain near his chamber and slipped out, keeping to the shadows. He had already studied the guards' shifts. He knew when they looked away. He knew which path stayed darkest. He moved. The throne room was enormous. High glass ceiling, floating lanterns, silver floor. The Empress's great seat stood alone at the top of the steps. But tonight, she wasn't sitting on it. She was kneeling in front of it. Alone. The human watched from behind a pillar, barely breathing. The Empress pressed her hand to a hidden panel in the floor. A soft click. A square of the floor opened, and a secret staircase appeared. She walked down into the darkness. The floor closed behind her. The human's heart pounded. So this was it. The cradle vault. He waited. 15 minutes passed. Then he rushed forward, copying what she did. His hand touched the panel. Nothing. He tried again. Still nothing. But he had noticed something. The Empress's robe had a ring, gold, sharp-edged. He looked around. At the base of the throne, he saw a small ring resting on the step. She had dropped it. He picked it up, placed it in the panel. Click. The floor opened. The stairs were narrow and glowing dimly. He went down, each step slower than the last. Below, he saw the vault, a large round room covered in strange markings. In the center was a floating sphere filled with light, but more than that. He heard voices. Not people. Memories. The sphere was speaking, showing things. And the Empress stood in the center, watching a vision of Earth, cities burning, ships flying, screams. A calm voice said, "Earth can be taken. Their defenses are weak. Their leaders are divided." The Empress nodded. "Soon, I will tame them like I tamed this one." She meant him. The human's jaw tightened. Then she said something else. "If the pet resists, use the mark. His mind will break in seconds." Mark? Suddenly, a panel on the wall lit up. A map. It showed the back of his neck, and a glowing red spot on it. They had planted something inside him. His hand shot to the back of his neck. He backed away, but his foot touched a loose piece of stone. It cracked under his weight. Snap. The Empress turned sharply. "Who's there?" He ran. Up the stairs. Fast. The floor began to close, but not before he rolled out. He sprinted back to the shadows, heart racing. The Empress's voice echoed from below. "Search the palace. Someone was here," guards shouted. Alarms lit up. Footsteps thundered in every hall. But the human was already hiding, an event he had noticed days ago. Tight, dark, full of dust. He stayed there, listening. The Empress didn't know who had followed her. Not yet. But it wouldn't take long. That night, as the palace searched for the intruder, the human lay hidden in the vent. He touched the back of his neck. A small bump. A device. A control point. So they had planned to break his mind. But now he knew. And that changed everything. The palace was tense. Guards searched every corner. They sniffed the air, scanned shadows, and questioned every servant. Someone had followed the Empress into the cradle vault, and she was not calm about it. But the human said nothing. He returned to his place beside her throne the next morning, silent, expressionless, harmless-looking. The Empress watched him closely. She didn't speak for a long time. Then she smiled. A test. She dropped a fruit on purpose. It rolled past her slipper, landing near him. She gave a sharp command in her native tongue. "Fetch." He looked at the fruit, paused, then crawled forward and picked it up. She narrowed her eyes. Another test. Later in the garden, she sat beside the fountain. The music of alien birds filled the air. A servant girl came with a silver tray of drinks. The Empress looked at the tray. "That one?" she said in her language, pointing to the red cup. The servant hesitated. The human, without thinking, pointed to the red cup and said, "Jarin." The tray froze in midair. The servant girl blinked. The Empress didn't move. Time slowed. Then the Empress slowly turned her head toward him. Her smile faded. Her golden eyes locked with his. "Jarin," she repeated. "You know that word?" The human froze. He realized too late he had spoken out loud in her language. He looked down quickly and made a soft, animal-like grunt. He acted confused, like he had just copied a sound without meaning. The Empress didn't look convinced. She stood up, walked over, and crouched beside him. Say it again, she whispered. He stayed still. She touched his chin, gently lifting his face. Sharon. He blinked dumbly, then looked at the cup. She smiled again, but now it was sharp, like a knife behind her lips. That night, the human lay on his rug and stared at the ceiling. He had made a mistake. A big one. He had been careful for days, listening, learning, blending in. But now she had doubt. She was testing him, watching him, too closely. He had to be better, faster, smarter. The next morning, the Empress gave him new tasks. She dropped strange alien tools on the floor and gave single-word orders. Lift. Spin. Carry. Drop. He followed the orders, but this time, he added delay. He acted slower, confused. She watched every twitch of his fingers. Then she clapped her hands, and 2 guards dragged in a broken creature. Another, pet. Beaten. Weak. Barely alive. She turned to the human. Do you understand what happens to liars here? He didn't move. The broken creature whimpered on the floor. Look at it, she said. He looked. The creature's eyes met his for a second, pure fear. The Empress leaned closer. Lie to me and you'll look like this. Then she turned and walked away, robe trailing behind her like smoke. Later in the servant tunnels, the same small alien girl who had once dropped fruit found him again. She whispered, You can understand, can't you? He held up a finger. Shh. She looked scared. You're in danger. They put a control spike in your neck. If she finds out the truth, she'll trigger it. He nodded. Then he looked around and whispered back in her language. I need to remove it. Quietly. She gasped. You speak. He stopped her. Help me, or she'll break more than me. The servant girl looked around. I know a place, she whispered. But if we're caught, we'll both disappear. The human nodded once. He was done hiding. The next day, everything changed. The human expected chains. A cage. Pain. He expected the Empress to punish him for speaking her word, for proving he was not just a pet. But instead, she smiled. She didn't call the guards. She didn't raise her voice. She simply said, Dress him properly, no more rags. Within minutes, he was wearing a soft black robe, stitched with silver thread. It fit him perfectly, too perfectly. He was led, not to the garden this time, but to the Empress's side as she walked through the palace halls. Guards stepped aside, servants bowed. He walked behind her, silent, watching. The Empress didn't look at him once, but her voice was calm and clear. This pet is smarter than the others, she said to her nobles. He may not speak, but he listens well. A general chuckled. You always choose the odd ones, Empress. Because odd ones and surprise me, she said, smiling. The human said nothing, but his mind raced. This was not kindness. This was control. She took him to the war room. It was a tall chamber, lit with maps and floating data screens. Holograms of star systems hovered in the air. Alien commanders stood around discussing troop movements and battle plans, and he was allowed to watch. No one spoke to him, but no one stopped him either. He stood in a corner, eyes moving fast, learning everything. He saw Earth's name flash on a red map. Sector 9, primary resource target. They were planning an invasion, and the countdown had already begun. Later, back in her private garden, the Empress sat alone. Only he remained at her side. She plucked a glowing flower and twirled it in her fingers. You know what I think? She said softly, voice floating like the wind. I think you understand more than you pretend to. He didn't move, but that's fine, she continued. I like secrets, even in pets. She stood. Follow. He obeyed. She led him to a tall glass chamber deep within the palace. Inside was something alive, a creature, bound in golden restraints. It had many eyes, long limbs, and wings folded like paper. It looked weak, but old, very old. The Empress stepped closer and placed her hand on the glass. "This was once a god to its people," she whispered. "Now it's mine." The creature stirred, staring at her through ancient, tired eyes. She looked at the human. "You'll learn your place," she said, "or you'll join it." That night, the human met the servant girl again. She took him to a quiet corner in the lower chambers. Steam hissed from pipes, the lights flickered. "This is as far as I go," she said. "Behind that door is someone who can help." The human nodded and stepped inside. An older alien stood at the table. He wore mechanical goggles and had metal fingers. "You want the spike removed?" the alien asked in a gruff voice. The human nodded once. The alien pointed. "Sit down." The pain was sharp, quick. Then it was over. A tiny chip sat in the alien's palm. Burnt, broken. "She won't control you now," the alien said. But the human didn't smile. He stood, placed the chip in his own pocket, and left silently. The next morning, he knelt before the Empress again, but this time, there was nothing in his neck. No leash, no chain, no control. She looked down at him, amused. "Good, you're learning." He looked up, and for the first time, he smiled, just a little. She didn't notice, but she would, soon. He no longer crawled. He walked beside her now. The human, once silent and ignored, now moved freely through the palace halls just steps behind the Empress. Dressed in royal black, bearing the crest of her house on his shoulder, he looked like a servant. But the truth was much more dangerous. He was listening, and he remembered everything alien nobles passed him, giving polite nods. Soldiers whispered, unaware that he understood. Every word spoken in her language about ships, troop movements, rebellions, secret messages, was collected in his mind like puzzle pieces, and the picture was almost complete. That morning, the Empress invited him to the strategic observatory. From there, she could see the stars, her planets, and her power stretching across the galaxy. She stood tall, arms behind her back. "I could crush 5 worlds before breakfast," she said proudly. He said nothing, just stood near the glass watching a red planet spinning slowly in orbit. "You wonder why I keep you close," she said. "Most rulers keep their pets in cages, but I like to watch them think." She stepped closer. "You're always thinking." He gave a slow blink, playing the fool. "Still pretending, little earthling?" she asked softly. "No matter. When I send the signal, your world will burn, whether you understand me or not." He kept his face still, but inside, he was burning. Later that day, a message arrived, encrypted, urgent. A small alien technician handed it to the Empress. "From the Black Reach, Majesty, it's marked priority, eyes only." The Empress turned, stepping behind a soundproof barrier to read it. But the human had already seen the technician's fingers. 4 quick taps, pause, 3 long strokes. A code, spy signal, hidden call for help. Someone inside her empire was trying to stop her and maybe help him. That night in the garden, the Empress relaxed in the glowing moonlight. She waved him over with one finger. He sat beside her like a loyal shadow. "I could have made you simple," she said. "I could have kept you blind. But instead, I wanted to see what you would become." She looked up at the alien moon. "Duh, you know what I see when I look at you now?" He glanced at her, she smiled. "A mirror, quiet, sharp, dangerous." Then she whispered something so soft only he could hear it. "And I don't trust mirrors." The next morning, the servant girl who helped him appeared again. This time, her hands were shaking. "You have to leave," she whispered. "They're going to test you tonight. A mental scan, they'll see everything if you stay." His eyes narrowed. "I can get you out," she said. "A cargo ship leaves in 4 hours." He looked down at his hands, then back at the Golden Palace halls. "No," he said quietly. "Not yet." "Why?" she asked, desperate. "You'll be found." He reached into his robe and pulled out something small. The spike, the control chip, burnt, dead. but glowing faintly with stored data. He had made a copy. A trap. She thinks I'm still hers, he said. Then he looked at her, eyes calm. Let her think that one more day. That night, he was called to her private chamber. The Empress stood beside a long table. On it, glowing, symbols circled a single command crystal. Touch it, she said. He stepped forward slowly. If you're truly still just a pet, it will show nothing. He reached out. His fingers hovered over the crystal. And then, he smiled. Just a little. He placed the fake spike, his own copy, on the scanner first. It glowed, clean, empty. The Empress leaned back, satisfied. Good, she said. Then we can begin. The throne room was full. Nobles in bright robes stood in rows. Soldiers in silver armor lined the walls. The air smelled of rare flowers and hot metal. Everyone waited in silence. At the center stood the Empress, tall, proud, terrifying. Beside her, as always, stood the human, her pet. She raised a hand. This is a special day, she said. Today we reveal our next step toward dominion. Sector 9, Earth, will fall. Gasps and cheers filled the room. The human said nothing. He kept his head low, silent, still playing the role. But today, he wasn't just listening. He was ready. A silver console floated toward the Empress. She pressed a glowing symbol. This is the launch signal, she said to her council. Once pressed, the fleet moves. Earth becomes mine. She turned to the human. I want you to press it, she said. Everyone stared in confusion. A pet? One noble whispered. She smiled. Yes, my pet. To show I've tamed even the wildest creature. The human looked at the button. So small, so deadly. He stepped forward. Each step felt slow, heavy. He stopped in front of it, raised his hand. Then, he lowered it and spoke, clearly, calmly, in perfect alien language. No, the throne room fell silent. The Empress froze. Nobles gasped. He turned and looked at her, really looked at her. I'm not your pet, he said. I never was. She stared at him, unable to speak. You spoke, she whispered. I understood you from the beginning, he said. Every word, every lie, every threat. The guards moved, raising their weapons. He raised his hand. You might want to stop them, he said. Unless you want this entire palace to vanish. From his robe, he pulled out a small black disc, an alien device. It blinked red. Her eyes widened. That's from the vault, she whispered. Yes, he said, and I've learned how it works. A long silence followed. The Empress stepped forward slowly. Why didn't you run? She asked. You could have escaped, he shook his head. Running doesn't stop monsters, standing does. The Empress's expression changed, no longer anger, but something else. Respect. Then she laughed, cold, sharp, echoing. You're clever, she said. But you're still alone. He smiled. Not anymore. Doors burst open. The servant girl entered, followed by rebel soldiers, alien defectors, and a few brave humans in stolen uniforms. The nobles screamed. Some ran. The Empress didn't move. You planned all this, she said. He stepped closer. No, he said. You did, when you let me listen. Later, as the sun rose over her shattered empire, the Empress stood in the same throne room. But now as a prisoner. And the human? He sat on the edge of her old throne, quiet and watchful. The servant girl stood beside him, smiling. You're not a pet, she said. He looked out the window. No, he replied. I'm human.